other one is a blue collar worker, it doesn't make one any better than the other.
Right.
So the important thing is, you're out there making an honest living, and, and you're doing the best you can for you and your family. I think that's what's important. So point number 4, let's go through the points again. So point number 1 was the lack of sex. Point number 2 is I've got 'em mentality. Point number 3 is the lack of affection. And point number 4 is the lack of appreciation.
Yeah.
Babies cry for it, men die for it. And that's appreciation,
Yeah.
right? Um, think about this for a second. The last job you had, why did you leave that job? Because at some point in time, that job was really good to you. What happened?
Right.
And what we're learning is people don't leave jobs, they leave their managers, right? And usually it's because of a lack of appreciation, right? And so men like to be appreciated for what they do. Maybe a man is doing something and it's his way of showing his appreciation, but you don't necessarily see it that way.
Right.
So it could be he goes to work every day and he brings his paycheck home, right? And you might say, well, that's what he's supposed to do. Not necessarily, okay? So just showing appreciation for that.
Right.
The more things you appreciate about him, the more he's gonna wanna do in that particular area.
That's it. Yeah. And as men, our wives, women, are, sometimes it's easy to pinpoint the flaws in your husband. Pinpoint but if you shine light on negativity, you're gonna draw more negativity. But if you shine light on the good things and you shine light on positivity, you bring back more positivity. You attract what you're putting out there. And so, hey, if you praise that man, hey, I sure love the way you cut that grass. You did that grass looked great. Praise the good things that he's doing, and let some of the negative stuff go, and he'll do more to get the appreciation from you.
Yeah.
But if you turn that man down every opportunity he get, hey, sister girl down the street, she gonna appreciate when he cut her grass.
Yeah. You are absolutely right. And so there's always something there to appreciate.
Right.
And if you can't find anything, then that just means you might need to examine emotionally where you're at with the relationship.
Right.
And so maybe there's some injuries that you haven't, that you're, haven't got past. Could be the way you grew up. Nobody appreciated you. That sounds like maybe going to see a professional about that. Seeing a licensed professional, because that's the kind of thing that can really destroy your relationship. One of the other things I think that leads to lack of appreciation, Dwayne, is just when women are comparing, when they're on social media and they're comparing, and all this posting and boasting about my man. Well, what happens is other women compare what you're saying and how you're boasting about your man. They're comparing it to their man, right? And so, just because, one guy is a white collar worker and the other one is a blue collar worker, it doesn't make one any better than the other. Right. So the important thing is, you're out there making an honest living, and and you're doing the best you can for you and your family. I think that's what's important.
Yeah, I saw an article once that talked about this woman that had a husband. The husband was he was I think he was a physician or something, and she was constantly posting just great things about him on Facebook. And he bought her a Bentley, and she took pictures, with the Bentley, And she was just so proud of it, and she was just so thankful to her husband. And he took her to New Zealand. They had went to England. They had went all over the world. They had went to Tahiti. They were in Hawaii. They were just, I mean, so many women were jealous of this woman. And they said, wow, wish my husband could do those things. Well, come to find out, she wasn't married at all. She ain't have no husband. And all them pictures she posted on Facebook was fake.
Wow.
And so sometimes you have to know that stuff on social media, 9 times out of 10, it ain't even real.
Yeah. You can be whoever you are, whoever you want to be on social media.
You
right?
can be whatever you want to be.
Yeah.
And I know I'm a great husband, I'm a great father, and my wife, she rarely, if ever, goes on Facebook and posts great things about me. Why? Because she's busy taking care of me. She's busy cooking. That's what she's doing right now. Or she's cleaning the house. Or she's, we're exercising. We're busy. And she's busy taking care of her home and her family. She don't have a lot of time. And so it just makes you question, how much time do you actually have if you on Facebook posting?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you gotta watch all that. You can't go on Facebook and say, Julie husband, she got a good husband. Mine ain't doing nothing but sitting on that couch.
Yeah.
Come to find out, Julie husband done bashed her head in last night.
Yeah. So, just be mindful of that. Just be mindful. Yeah. So
don't compare your bad with somebody else good.
That's it.
Can't do it.
That's
don't do it.
Very great point. Great point. Because that's what you do when you compare. Mm-hmm. It's never your best against someone else's best. It's always your worst against someone else's best, or something that someone else is, I wanted to go to Cancun. Yeah, I ain't never been to Cancun. When you gonna take me to Cancun, right? So just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And so let's move on. So 4 was lack of appreciation. And so 5 is the lack of love language. And I think from what I understand, part of the challenge with love languages is giving your partner what they need. That's the whole idea. It's giving your partner what they need. And what I've learned is we tend to give our partners what we need or what we want.
Right.
So in other words, if we like gifts, we give gifts. Well, your partner could be quality time. Maybe they appreciate when you come straight home after work and you spend that time with them, watching football, right? Watching Monday Night Football, with your partner. So, keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Understand what they want. And that's a book it's by Gary Chapman. It's called The Five Love Languages. So that's a book where the whole premise of how of the different love languages.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That makes sense. And number 6 here is religiosity. And this is a subject this is a deep subject all into itself. I mean, there's so much to unpack with that from, I can't do that. My pastor said, being boring and prudish. And what one of the things I've noticed, because, I've as an ordained minister, I've been in church for many, many years. And one thing I noticed is when Sister Sally, when she's out there dating and mingling, even though she in the church and she creeping, it's no holds bar. But now you want to get married, you want to act like, I'm the mother of the church. No, your husband is gonna go down to Sister Rachel down the street.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot to unpack with this religiosity because, I can't do that. I'm saved now. I'm saved. And so religiosity is it can be a blessing to marriage, but it also can be a great hindrance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you sitting in church 4, 5 days a week, in Sunday school, Bible study, outreach, sister soldier ministry, new convert class. Hey, when do you have time for your husband? When do you have time for your husband?
Yeah. That's
You don't have time. You have time for the church and the pastor, but you don't have time for your husband.
Yeah. 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 And this also goes back to the lack of appreciation. So now he feels, he doesn't feel appreciated. Why? Because you used to have dinner ready when he got home, and now you don't, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
because you're distracted.
Right.
So and that brings us to our last point, and that's being distracted. But I'm gonna go back. I do want to say I had a it wasn't a client. I won't get into too much about who it was, but he had a side piece. He's been married for over 20 years, and he had a side piece for 10 years.
Right.
And when I asked him, I said, "Hey," I said, "Well, what is it about?" He said, "Well, my wife got saved," and he said, "We used to have a little wine. We used to go dancing. We used to, have, some real good sex." And he said, once she got saved, all that stopped. She couldn't do that anymore. And they went and got marital counseling, at church. And that didn't really help, because he felt like the pastor blamed him for all their shortcomings in their relationship. At least that's the way he felt. I don't know if that was reality. I don't know specifics about that, but I'm just telling you what he told me. And he said, when he go over his side piece house, she's always glad he's there. She appreciates anything that he does for her. And he says, we go out and do fun things together.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, but hey, let's be honest. A lot of times pastor got a side piece too. Sometimes 2 or 3, and they're all in the church. So, hey, and this goes back to this is going into the last point of being distracted. And so it's hard as a woman. It's hard to juggle everything. You got work, you got kids. You have the phone, the social media, you have church, and there's a lot of things going on, and you have to keep the main thing, and ask yourself, hey, what's important to me? What's most important to me? Because whatever you put first is going to put you first. Whatever you put first now is going to put you first later. So, hey, if you married, you got a husband, you ain't putting him first, hey, later on, he might not be around. Yeah. And so you have to be realistic and honest and say, hey, I can't juggle everything, but hey, this is my guy. This is my boyfriend.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's back to appreciation. That's appreciation. That's showing that man, hey, I'm going to put you first.
Yeah. 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 And, Dwayne, sometimes I've seen couples where the kids are first, and they put the kids first. And thing you got to remember about your kids is your kids are important, but they shouldn't be at the center.
Right.
Because that's not going to work. Because when the center leaves, then there goes the relationships.
Right.
So, in order for things to work, your relationship has to work. Right. Okay. If your relationship is not working, the kids are not working, the jobs are not working, the businesses are not working. Right. So it's one of the biggest stressors that you can have is relationship stress. Right. And especially when we're talking about things like infidelity, right? And that really goes to the heart of your relationship. Right. And so, and it's really kind of a balance. It's really a balance. Right. And it's something that you have to be conscious of, and you have to make the shifts. And sometimes you may get a little lopsided over on this side, but that's okay as long as you know you're lopsided. You say, hey,
Right.
give me a week here, give me a month here. For this month, I'm gonna be lopsided, but I promise you, we're gonna come back to dead center. And I
Right.
think that's important.
Yeah, it is very important. And I was just thinking going back to the religiosity and also being distracted, because I think they're very similar. And that's point six is religiosity, and point seven is being distracted. I went to this church one time, and I went to preach, and the church probably had the church had about 80 people total in the church. In that whole church, there were 5 men, including myself. 5 men, including myself. It was all women. And when you go in church, look around. It's predominantly women, because men, they want to spend their time doing other things besides, sitting in church, 4 or 5 days a week. So please be careful of that religiosity,
Yeah.
because it can be a marriage destroyer for sure.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've seen it. I've counseled people in the church, and hey, by the time they, by the time they want to try to rein that thing in, it's already they done veered off course so far. It's done.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And so, so some of the distractions can be work, could be your kids, could be your girlfriends. You're always on the phone with them, you're always texting them, social media, you got your new lifestyle,
Yeah.
Instagram blog or whatever. A lot of times these things can interfere with the relationship. Video games on your phone, on your tablets, and so a lot of times these things can be a huge distraction
Yes.
where you're not available. So being distracted means you are just not available.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And a man knows. He knows when you're not available. He knows when you're doing something that you don't want to do. And so all those things, they're less emotional than women typically, but we're still overall, we still have feelings, we still have emotions, and we know when someone just wants to putting up, well, come on, it's Monday, it's 8:30, come on, a man knows, man knows, and so he may not say anything, but he knows. Yeah.
So let's just do a quick recap on each of our points. So point number 1 was a lack of sex. Point number 2 is I've got 'em mentality. Point number 3 was the lack of affection. Point number 4 was the lack of appreciation. Point number 5 was the lack of love languages. And 6 was religiosity. And 7 was being distracted. And so this is not all inclusive. These are just some of the things that we've just identified. We just hit the wave tops on, just kind of right down the middle on what some of the issues or concerns could be as to what drives good guys. All right. And so we're not talking about the serial guys. We're not talking just serial cheaters. They've been cheating the whole time you guys have been in a relationship together, right? So we're not talking about them. And quite frankly, maybe they could use professional help,
Right.
from someone that's licensed, right?
That's right.
So,
Yeah. The last point I'll make on this subject is that all men are susceptible to it. All men are susceptible.
Yeah.
And so you can say, well, not my husband. Oh yeah, it's your husband.
Yeah.
So all men are susceptible to it. So,
Yeah.
It's just something that no man can say, well, hey, that ain't me. No, all men are susceptible. So it's being in tune and showing the appreciation and this list that these points that we've made. Hey, these are the key points to keep him engaged and keep him feeling valued and appreciated.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And and it's important. It's important to kind of create that. And when you're able to do it, what happens is when you're off,
Yeah.
right? And so because sometimes over a period of time everything gets off track.
Yep.
And so the point is to catch it while you're off track. That's the important part.
Yeah.
You want to be able to catch it because you are off track. You want to be able to you want to know that so you can make those mid-course corrections, I like to call them.
That's it.
Yeah. So
yeah.
All right, with that, it's a wrap. Thank you guys for listening in. We appreciate it. And there's more to come. Hey, if there's a topic or something you want us to cover, hey, let us know. You've got some ideas. Let us know. Please comment, please share, please subscribe to the channel. We're really trying to do something positive here, something that's beneficial. I think sometimes it's helpful to leave a roadmap. It's helpful to leave, guidance. I think sometimes, when we get on the other side of things, sometimes it's important, for us to be Sherpas and us to be, mentors and models and things like that for others. I think that's important. Any closing thoughts from you, bro?
Hey, you wrapped it up, man. You wrapped it up. Appreciate you watching. Hey, Two Brothers Coaching.
God bless.
God bless.